It can be very difficult to get back into the flow of a project after there's some sort of interruption. In my case, I got sick. Well, my whole family got sick. And now I'm finally feeling better so I can start working on the comic again. Right before I got sick, I finished the script, storyboard, and character design. So that left me in a pretty good place to kind of jump back where I was switching to the roughing out of the actual comic. On the first day where I felt better, I got up a little earlier than I probably wanted to. It was about 6:30. And after getting a fire going, I only had about an hour to work on the comic. But when I sat down, I was thinking, I'll put on some music. But recently they had a Spotify update. I don't pay for Spotify. I just have the free one. And they made it so you can play your playlist, but they also put in their recommended. So for example, I have one song by Billy Joel, which is It's Still Rock and Roll to Me. And that's the only song I really like by him. But now I'm getting lots of his songs. And it's irritating because you also only get a certain number of skips. So instead of just being able to just put on music, I ended up writing down all the songs, which is not that many. I wrote them down on one side of paper. I was basically letting myself procrastinate. So hopefully next time I can kind of set myself up where I can just play music without having to deal with the irritation of Spotify. With about 30 minutes left, I ended up actually getting some work done. It's called Rainbow, and it's about a guy who's wandering in the desert, and he looks out, sees a rainbow and, nice clouds over there. So he gets a little mad at the gods for making it rain over there, not where he is. And then a god comes out of the clouds and grabs the rainbow and shoots him with it. He doesn't kill him. The first few panels are establishing the location. So the guy climbing up this rocky mountain in the desert. The second panel is supposed to be him turning, but I don't think it's actually necessary. So I struggled with that panel for a while, trying to think, okay, how should I frame this? How am I going to show this little line to show that he's turning? It just wasn't working. So then I moved on to panel 3. I got a reference photo to get the sand dunes in the distance somewhat okay. And then I went to the third one. Wrong. And then I went to the fourth panel, which is just a dialogue panel. I realized I tend to stay zoomed out. And for a panel that's just a face shot and a bubble, I should make the face a little bigger so I can get more into the detail and show a better expression, which I also need to get better at expressions. So I tried this time to make the face bigger. It worked out pretty good. I like that panel the most so far. And that's where I stopped. I only got 1, 2, 3 panels done. And I still only worked for about 30 minutes. This phase of making comics is very mentally taxing for me because I have to try to visualize each angle. So for the 5th panel, I thought that it was going to be more of a side shot, but then when I was looking at my storyboard, I realized it's more from looking at the back of the character and out at the scenery. So I had to redo that and then try to think, okay, so how much am I seeing? Do I need to see his face? What is the focus here? And then I went to the 6th panel where it shows the god coming out of the clouds. That one was actually pretty easy because I did a pretty good job in the storyboard figuring out what kind of pose he would be in. Then I went to panel 7, and this one's the more complicated one because I kept messing up on the proportion of the god because he's going to step out of the clouds at this point and step onto the land, and I kept making him too big. So when he stands up, he would be standing up outside the panel. In the panel, I ended up making a kind of a 8-head guide to figure out what proportion he was going to be, how big was he going to be. But it kept getting more and more messy because I was trying to create a guide on top of the panel. So I moved it over onto my scrap paper. That helped a lot. So then I was able to understand how long his shin is going to be and his thigh to account for the curve of his leg stepping out. But once I figured that out, I was done. It's like, well, now I just want to relax. So even though I've only worked on this for an hour in the past 2 days, I still feel pretty good about it. And it's getting me back in the mode of getting the comics done and back into getting up early and being able to focus on it. When trying to get back into the mode of something, I don't want to baby myself, but I also don't want to push myself to the point where I'm just resisting and not actually doing and then feeling guilty in that kind of vicious cycle. So my goal at the moment is just to try to get up earlier and to work on it. This is day 3. I woke up at 5:30, which was probably a little earlier than I should have because I've been pretty tired today. I ended up working on one panel for about 30 minutes and I didn't actually finish it. I have the god that came out of the cloud and now I'm trying to draw where he's grabbing the rainbow and advancing in a way. I started off by doing kind of a bad proportion where he was way too big, and then I ended up overcompensating and making him way too small. So I ended up making another thumbnail on my scrap paper to try to figure out exactly where he should be in the scene. That helped, but then I realized when I was doing it on the panel that I didn't really like the pose he was in. It wasn't working out. But now I think I know what I need to do because I had him kind of leaning back, but I need him going forward. So I'm going to try and find some reference photos to try and find the pose that I really want because I can't seem to imagine it very well. Yeah. Even though that took a long time and I didn't technically achieve anything, I at least know more so where I want it to go, and I'm hoping that tomorrow will be easier. Today I did a better job staying focused, and when I did have some sort of interrupting thought, something I need to get to or something I would like to do, I just wrote it down in my phone and went back to work. But I was able to work for about an hour. I don't really remember what I did in the first 30 minutes. I spent a lot of time just looking at the storyboard and trying to figure out what I'm going to do, how it's going to translate when it gets bigger. And then a lot of time drawing and erasing, redrawing, erasing, redrawing, erasing. I am trusting that as time goes on, I will get faster at drawing and I won't have to go back and forth so much, do all this trial and error. I realized that I've been doing storyboarding kind of wrong. Not bad, but because of my inexperience, I do the best I can to figure out what it's going to look like. But when it comes to drawing it on the actual panel, I end up doing a lot more big alterations than I think you're supposed to, at least would be nice to do. So I don't think I can really do anything about that at this point. But I'm hoping that as time goes on and I get more experience and better understanding of what the shot's actually going to look like, what the panel's actually going to look like, then the storyboards will be closer to the actual comic. And then I won't have to do so much revising when I'm doing the drawing. On day 4, I thought I was going to be just set to go because I found a reference for panel 8 and I sketched out a pose that I liked, and then I was just going to try and size it up a little bit to put it on panel 8, but it didn't work out. I kept trying to size him up, but his proportions were all wonky. So after about 20 minutes of struggling to try and get his proportions right, I decided to take a break, and in that break I watched Action Jackson, which is a 1988 movie starring Carl Weathers. It actually has 3 actors from Predator in it, so that was cool. And I hadn't seen it before, but it was good. So after that break, I went back and I tried to finish panel 8, and I did actually get it. What helped is I got rid of the guidelines that I'd made for how tall he was going to be, and I made him pretty much the same size as my sketch. I realized that the height that I had set was really arbitrary, and I was just guessing. So there was no need for him to be exactly that tall. It only took me about 10 minutes to get the panel right, and then I tried doing panel 9, but I realized I needed a reference. Because I couldn't do that panel, I just decided I would be done for the day. But what I should have done is looked at later panels and trying to find other ones that I didn't need a reference for. So in the future, I'll try to do that. Not just stop because I can't go in sequential order. For day 5, I tried a lot harder to get a full hour's worth of work in. And I did manage to get panels 9, 10, and 11 done. For this one, I started with panel 11 because I wanted to get a better sense of the geography. Because I have the giant sitting off on the sand dunes, standing on the sand dunes, and then I have the lost wandering guy up on a rocky kind of mountain on the other side across from a little valley. For panel 9, I need almost a back shot of the guy, and you can see the god off on the sand dunes. But I wasn't quite sure what the terrain would look like in between. So making panel, trying to keep these straight, panel 11 first really helped me be able to sort of rotate it in my mind. And then when I was searching through references, I found a pretty cool shot of a guy shooting a bow and you're looking right behind him. So I ended up making that for panel 10. For day 5, I was able to work 48 minutes, so that's much more close to what I would like every day to be. So that was my week of trying to get back into the groove and work every day on comics like I normally would. Let me know what you guys do to try and get back into your routine after some sort of interruption. Well, thank you for watching.